People go through their lives continuously taking on different challenges each day. Whether it is in school, at work, or at home, there are many things that always come up and cause too much stress on a person. He might simply have too much to do and not enough opportunity to get enough rest. There are instances when a person handles a task on a tight schedule, feeling that time is never on his side. In both situations, it can get scary to think about what can happen, and it can be even harder to think about failure. There's no need to feel this way anymore. Sometimes things happen, and there is no choice but to wait until the last minute. Whether this is because an assignment is due in the morning or if there's too much to do in one day, learning how to work faster for your own benefit is the best way to go. Procrastination is a harsh term that gets thrown around and disrespected. The truth is that everyone does it, and everyone wishes that they could figure out how to complete their work faster while still providing the highest quality. This video course will guide you through all the positive and negative results that come from procrastination. It will also show you better ways on how to complete an assignment after postponing it for so long. Either way, you should be able to find success by watching this video course. Go through the chapters and take down some notes. After you're done with the final chapter, you will have a full understanding of what procrastination does to a person, why it happens, how it can benefit you in the long run, and how to help yourself work quickly and efficiently. In this video, we'll talk about the science behind procrastination. People will always say how bad procrastination is before ever truly realizing why it happens. It's a natural approach which people rely on at the last minute. It is about how they will continually agree to take on another assignment before finishing the previous one. This is not about responsibility and whether the person can complete tasks or not. It is about wanting to take on a challenge and finish more assignments than the person next to them. This is a common scenario, especially in the workplace where employees will compete to keep their jobs. Sometimes the only way to do this is to take on more assignments and finish them faster. Whether they were turned in at the last minute or not, they take on more assignments just to impress their managers. People question themselves whenever they push back an assignment another day or even another week. Sometimes an assignment that is due the next day will continuously be pushed back because people keep switching their focus throughout the day. This happens because a battle between the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex occurs in the brain. The limbic system controls the amount of pleasure and relaxation that a person will naturally feel. The prefrontal cortex controls the amount of planning that the mind must go through. Simply put, when a person chooses to push back an assignment by either an hour or a day, the limbic system is taking over the prefrontal cortex. This situation often happens as people like going through the constant cycle of waiting until the last minute. The reason the limbic system continues to be more in control and overpowers the prefrontal cortex is because it's one of the older and more dominant parts of the brain. This system automatically runs through the process of strengthening itself more often than any other part of the brain. It is one of the first systems which develops inside the brain, responsible for keeping a person away from carrying out unpleasant actions. For example, when a child looks at a flame, he might get curious and want to touch it. The limbic system tells his brain not to touch the flame because it will hurt him. This system does not focus on the damage that would be inflicted, but the amount of pain that would be felt. Compared to the limbic system, the prefrontal cortex is developed at a later stage. In science, this system is also known to be one of the weaker parts of the brain. The main feature of this part of the brain is that it runs through stimulus rather than an automatic process. People think that thoughts develop automatically in the prefrontal cortex, but it's quite the opposite. It sits right behind the forehead and has to be made to function for it to work. The moment a person sits down to work on an assignment and consumes time in continuing it, he is telling his brain to keep working on the task instead of lingering off. This is a difficult thing to do, especially when the limbic system continues to bribe the brain to relax at that moment. Even though relaxing for a bit sounds good, the prefrontal cortex understands that the assignment must be completed by a certain time, and if not, the person will go through a certain punishment that will make life less relaxed. So the closer the due date of an assignment, the quicker these two parts of the brain will negotiate to understand which action should be taken. The truth is, the action which leads to more relaxation tends to win each time. The closer a person approaches a due date, the more he begins to panic since he feels he cannot relax as much. The moment this is felt, it is easier to keep the prefrontal cortex engaged. It is easier to continue each assignment since it's understood that there will be more pain the longer the person waits. This is one of the few times where both sides of the brain win. The prefrontal cortex gets to complete the assignment while the limbic system feels less pain. Another reason a person procrastinates is because he feels a certain rush the longer he waits for an assignment to be completed. He is able to take on the challenge of finishing everything at the very last minute and feels rewarded by doing so. It's all about the idea of cutting it close, but still being victorious at the end. When a person waits until the last minute to finish an assignment, he sees a challenge and feels what he thinks is an adrenaline rush. What he's actually feeling is a small dose of dopamine moving quickly through the brain. It's a good feeling that comes with the expectation of getting a reward every time an assignment is completed. This boost gives enough reason for a person to continue coming back to the idea of waiting for as long as he can before completing any type of assignment. Since the hormone dopamine continues to run through the brain during these situations, it causes a person to lose his sense of control. He starts to form a battle within himself to see how much self-control he truly has. While he knows that an assignment is due soon, he also knows that the intense feeling of waiting until the last minute is just right around the corner. He could choose to finish the assignment ahead of time to gain more time to relax later, or he could choose to relax first and push the assignment back to challenge himself to finish the assignment at the last minute. Having self-control means that the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system are equally functioning. There are no boundaries to try and cross to have one side win over the other. Instead, they seem to work together to ensure the highest amount of efficiency within a person. While a person is in control of his mind and what he is doing at the moment, his reaction to the hormones is quite difficult to overcome. It's all about the feelings that would rather be felt, the victory at the last moment to feel the rush of dopamine in the mind, or a calming sense of being ahead to strengthen the prefrontal cortex. While dopamine is the main factor which contributes to the reasons behind procrastination, adrenaline can still exist in this situation. The part of the brain that produces adrenaline is called the amygdala. It's associated with an automatic emotional reaction, which is triggered whenever a situation that is difficult for the mind to process arises. This happens when a situation is outside of the boundaries of everyday life. For example, a person can walk or drive to get to the places where he needs to go. One day, he can end up running late when he is normally always on time. This causes him to panic and become overwhelmed. He will not know what to do, not thinking clearly as a result. At this moment, the brain evaluates the choice using the fight or flight response. When it comes to choosing between doing an assignment or not, the fight response in the amygdala would choose to do the assignment at that moment. The fight response in the amygdala would choose to do the assignment at that moment. The flight response would push the assignment back another day, and once again, instead of doing what needs to be done, the brain would choose to procrastinate. Generally, the amygdala does not choose one side over the other, unlike the limbic system, which always chooses relaxation. The amygdala chooses the side which allows the person to have the highest amount of safety. For example, if a person needs more sleep, the amygdala will choose for the person to get more rest rather than do the assignment. It's all about focusing on healing of the body rather than focusing on the tasks of the day or the week. Overall, the brain is in a constant battle between which side to choose. It will continue to evaluate the different variables to figure out whether to procrastinate or not. The brain will continue to crave for hormones every time a person chooses to procrastinate, and it will find more reasons to take on more assignments to continue feeling the rush of a challenge. Even though it feels good to wait until the last minute to achieve success, the best way to strengthen the prefrontal cortex is to practice stepping away from the habits of procrastination. In this video, we'll talk about how procrastination can destroy your life. In the previous video, the layout of the brain was explained through the science of procrastination. The brain utilizes hormones when making decisions, always looking at the best outcome for a person. It doesn't matter whether the outcome is about resting peacefully or completing an assignment, it's about learning what the body needs at a specific moment. Even though many things can be done throughout the week, the brain will continue to choose relaxation to ensure that the body is well rested and that there is more dopamine in the system at the end. Since the mind will not always choose the best route to take, procrastination can be a bad thing to rely upon as it can damage your lifestyle choices. Now, let's talk about the 4 reasons procrastination can be devastating to a person's life. The first reason is that it causes him to mismanage his time. It causes him to lose track of when an assignment is due, causing more trouble than good. When it comes to either a school or job assignment, the important thing is to make sure that each assignment is done on time or turned in close to the due date. Sometimes people will wait about a week before starting an assignment. They will prioritize relaxation without ever realizing the level of punishment they could encounter. There are times when people come down to being able to complete only one assignment. Some think this is not a big deal since there's always something else that will enable them to get back up. They can always do something that will tell their employer that they are still worth employing. Alongside, always running against time can add years to your life. For example, if you're working on a project that doesn't have a due date, but it's a publication which can set you up for better jobs in the future, nothing says directly that you must work on it straight away. Nothing states that it needs to be done within a certain amount of time. Since there's no exact due date for the publication, the mind sees that there's plenty of time to continue pushing it off until the last minute. Then, years go by, and the publication is nowhere near complete, and the same chain of low-wage jobs keeps impacting you. If you simply took the time to work on a small amount every day, or at least once every week, you would have a better job with accompanying wage. It's not always about when the next due date is. It's about moving through the changes in life to understand that work constantly needs to be done to gain success as the years go by. The second reason procrastination can be bad for you is that you can miss certain opportunities in your life. You might not be able to meet the goals that are formed right in front of you. It's all about going through your life to realize that it is changing and that things can be different. When you approach the deadline for a project at work or in school, the most important thing to consider is what you can achieve in terms of opportunity. Most opportunities that happen in life only come around once. No one is ever guaranteed a second chance at an opportunity. Since this happens, being a procrastinator can be very harmful because you wait until the last minute to grasp these opportunities. Even though most people will immediately see an opportunity right in front of them, they will continue to wait until the last minute and not do anything. That is the moment the opportunity is lost. The world works by giving people opportunities. If you do not have any opportunities at hand, then you must use your goals to inspire you to work harder to be able to move forward and find success in life. When it comes to meeting goals, it is more about accepting challenges. Throughout the day, people can take on any task and still carry out their daily routines. But when it comes to having an actual goal, it becomes harder to achieve when procrastination is in the picture. Some people will say that if a person really wants to achieve something, he will achieve it. Well, this might be true in the sense where people can develop themselves and continue to work towards a goal until they complete it. Procrastination happens when a person relaxes more than focuses on the goal itself. In this sense, even when a person has a strong desire to change, he actually won't because he will keep delaying this change in his life. Whether he's trying to change his eating habits, physical activity, or even his job, it's all about allowing a change to come, but that change will need to come at a certain point. There are no actual points where a person is forced to stop or change the deadline of his goals. Because of procrastination, it becomes harder to complete one's goal in life. The third reason procrastination can badly affect your life is because it ruins your goals and opportunities. In this sense, procrastination can ruin your career. It's more than just taking on a simple job and then waiting until the last minute to complete everything. It's about forming a bad habit within yourself, which tells you to wait until the last minute to complete anything. Therefore, whenever you apply for another job or look for a different career, your interviewer will look at your records and see that you are not the most responsible employee. This will make it much harder for you to find a new job, and therefore it will be harder to accept and maintain a different career. The management of a business wants every employee to be efficient when carrying out tasks. If you are an employee that causes the downfall of a business, your managers will not hold their breath to keep you or give you another chance. They will simply let you go, leaving you to search the real world for a new job. The same cycle will happen because procrastination is within you and it keeps you from meeting deadlines and doing your best during meetings. You might have to deliver an important speech, which you only prepared the night before or even an hour before the meeting itself. Your manager will see that you are not working hard enough and that you are not worth being employed by the company. Therefore, your company will let you go, considering that you always wait until the last minute before carrying out important tasks. It's always best to realize that there are more important things to do than just sitting down and doing nothing. The last thing that can happen when it comes to procrastination is that it will cause you to have a lower self-esteem, leading you to make poor decisions. It is one of those vicious circles and periods of life where people form habits that they walk themselves into, and these are usually much harder to get out of. Procrastination itself is not going to necessarily be the cause of this. It will just reinforce this idea. It will make a person's self-esteem even lower because he'll realize that he always waits until the last minute and that he's not someone a business can rely on. He will begin to doubt himself and ask questions as to why he is unable to be responsible and do assignments as early as possible. He will begin to wonder how he got to this point and begin to question other points in his life that he has been waiting on and has not even seen. If you are a person who focuses on building self-esteem, procrastination is one of the worst habits you can develop. At this point, it's all about making decisions in life. If you procrastinate, you will always make poor decisions because you choose to wait until the last minute. Take note, though, that not to procrastinate is not a rule. It simply should not be considered in most cases because it causes stress. And when it comes to stress, poor decisions are made. In this video, we'll discuss ways on how to manage your time when procrastination comes into the picture. It will also show you how to manage your life in terms of being able to complete assignments on time and with the highest quality. The information that I'm going to share can serve as a helpful guide on what you can do to prevent procrastination. As you continue watching the video, it would be helpful to write down the tips and highlights which most apply to you. Before we begin, think about what kind of worker you are. Imagine that you are a writer, a researcher, or a professor. These professions will have various timelines for assignments and different levels of intensity as to how to complete them. Depending on the kind of worker you are, one tip might work better than the other. The first step to stopping procrastination is to realize that you are indeed performing this habit. This is about you being honest with yourself and realizing that you are waiting until the last minute to complete things. Some people will be able to see this quickly, others will take longer to do so. It doesn't matter when you realize you are procrastinating. What is important is for you to acknowledge that it's happening in your life. Now let's talk about the 6 signs of a procrastinator. The first sign that will prove that you are procrastinating is when you choose to work on low priority tasks instead of higher level assignments. The second sign is when you realize that you are spending the majority of the day reading emails several times over without ever starting work. This is where you have one email in front of your face and you read it 5 times over without ever starting the task that was stated in the email. The third sign is where you take on a high priority task and then go off to enjoy a cup of coffee. The fourth sign is when you leave an important item undone on your daily task list. You know that it is something that you must do, but still, you never get to it. The next sign is when you realize that you are normally doing tasks that are not necessary throughout the day. This shows that you always decide to fill your time with things that are not important to your employer. You always think that your own relaxation is the main thing. The last sign that will make you realize that you might be procrastinating is when you always wait for the right time or the right feeling to do an assignment. This is where you will continually transfer your blame to the idea that you are not in the right mindset to do an assignment. So you will wait until you are ready. Sometimes people use this as an excuse not to do any work and push it back to the last minute. This is not about you feeling tired and therefore waiting to feel more awake to complete any assignments. Instead, this is about delaying a task that should be done in a day and instead branching it out to 3 or 4 days just because you are not in the right mood to do it. The next step to stopping procrastination is to understand why you are doing it in the first place. This part of the process is dependent on you and the task at hand. It is important to know that there are different elements in any situation, and sometimes one is more relevant than the other. A reason why a person could be procrastinating is because of how he feels towards the job he has. If a person finds his job unpleasant, he will do everything he can to avoid going to work. Either that or while at work, he will simply not do anything because he's tired of being there. Jobs will always have many unpleasant aspects to them, and the best way of dealing with these aspects is simply to focus on a more enjoyable thing that is happening within that day. Switching your focus to more enjoyable thoughts or moments in life will help to relax the mind, therefore helping you to concentrate more on the job itself. This way, you will be able to get things done quickly and stop thinking about your unpleasant job. Another way to determine why you might be procrastinating is to realize that you could simply be disorganized. This is not to say that you are a messy person. This is more about how you work, how you prioritize things during the day, and how you schedule items to stay on track. It is all about how people only accomplish a part of a large assignment instead of getting 3 things done in one day, blaming the idea that it's a large assignment. People who are organized in their work or set a definite schedule get to avoid procrastination because they can break down the amount of work that they need to do in a specific period. They also understand that there is a possibility that their daily task list might increase. People might think that success is about completing every single assignment no matter how much needs to be done. It is not necessarily about completing everything in front of you. Sometimes it's simply about being able to push back on a couple of things to get the primary task done. It's also about looking at the whole situation and realizing that the more important things should be done first. In these kind of situations, perfectionists are usually the procrastinators. They will spend time looking over every detail of the assignment to ensure they meet the standards that their manager has laid out. The time spent double checking and making sure that everything is working is actually wasted time. It could have been better spent working on another assignment. While this is a harsh way of looking at it, it's all about realizing that a person has the tendency to procrastinate because he is trying to get every small detail in, resulting in him not having any choices but to push back other assignments to accomplish a particular one. Perfectionists who continue to push back assignments will develop poor decision-making skills in the long run. They will get used to the fact that they can wait until the last minute to do everything. When this happens, they will not be able to decide which assignment should be done first. It will get to the point where there is no difference between an important and an unimportant task. Basically, these people will develop bad decision-making habits in which they will not be able to successfully decide upon what should be done in terms of completing work. The third step to realizing that you are procrastinating with your work is to learn more about anti-procrastination strategies. Later in this video, strategies on how to stop procrastination will be discussed. For now, the general tips that we have just mentioned have been set in place to keep you motivated and ensure that you continue working well. Since procrastination is truly just a habit, it's all about developing a better habit that can take over the other. The first thing to do to keep you motivated with your work is to come up with your own rewards for completing an assignment. For example, getting a bowl of your favorite snack while working can serve as a reward. Every time you finish working on a problem area, you can eat a part of the snack. This way, you'll be motivated to continue working forward just to have a taste of that small reward. The second thing you can do to make sure you stay motivated is to ask someone to check up on you. The support of this person making sure that you are all right and that you are on track will help to pressure you to continue working. It will motivate you to ensure that when he returns to see what you've been doing, you can show him that you've actually been working successfully. On the other hand, it's like having your boss walk in randomly and seeing that you have not accomplished anything. The third thing that can be done is to determine and carry out an unpleasant consequence for not doing the task. You can take away the rewards you have set for yourself or spend more time at the computer working instead of walking outside. Basically, instead of taking a break and relaxing in the middle of work to reward yourself for getting so much done, you'll sit there and continue working because you're punishing yourself for relaxing when you should have been working hard. The fourth thing that can be done is to work out the cost of the time you have utilized and think about how this cost will impact your employer's budget. This is where you'll see how much pay you will get if you complete the assignment on time versus submitting it late. It's about doing things which your manager has deemed important on time for you to get paid. If you are a person who procrastinates because you are disorganized, then the previously mentioned tips which aim to stop procrastination will not apply to you. Instead, the tips that follow might work for you since they will show you how to get organized. The first thing you can do is to write down a simple to-do list of daily tasks. This is to ensure that nothing is forgotten and that you complete everything, no matter how unpleasant or overwhelming the tasks are. The second thing to do is to look at this list and arrange the tasks from the most important to the least. Doing the things that are most important first will produce the best outcome for the day. Once this task is done, you should remember that the other things still need to be done, but they are not as important. The third thing to do is to become better at scheduling and project planning. This way, you will know exactly when to start your projects and tasks. The next thing you can do is set a certain amount of time for each item on the list. You should be able to make an estimate as to the amount of time you will need to complete a task on the list. For example, cleaning a kitchen might only take an hour, while completing an entire website might take 5 hours. Ensuring that you can work within the allocated time and working close to it will help you stay on schedule. The most important thing to do is to focus on one task at a time. If a task becomes too overwhelming or if you're seeing too much on the list, try to break things down into smaller sections. This will help you to create a better plan, which will allow you to continue working and rewarding yourself instead of just stopping altogether for the rest of the day.